Recording in progress.
And we are ready. Okay, let us begin our group prenatal class. We are assuming an audience of moms at any stage in their pregnancy. We can begin seated, if you like, on a chair, knowing that we always have our chair here if we need a little break or a little breather. If we're okay to begin in a standing meditation, let's go there. We might like to do just like a little shakeout to come into a neutral mountain pose. Give our shoulders a few rolls. Squeeze our shoulders up to our ears, relaxing down and back, and then we can turn palms forward. If we're feeling comfortable today with this, we can close our eyes. And I think it's important to know when we're on any of these Zoom trainings or dealing with the pressures of the world, and particularly for our pregnant moms-to-be, this affirmation that I love to share: I am enough, I have enough, I do enough. I'm repeating this to ourselves a couple times here. I am enough, I have enough, I do enough. Knowing that we receive the benefits of this practice simply by showing up, carving out this time for ourselves, and making space in our lives for our own well-being. And we may like to bring a hand to heart to express gratitude to ourselves in this moment and whatever good is in your life right now. And of course, let's bring a hand to belly. This gives us an opportunity to connect with breath, body, and baby. Noticing the rhythmic flow of breath and the slight expansion of our bodies on our inhale. Noticing how we're feeling and giving ourselves permission to modify any of our movements, techniques, or anything else to be more in line with how we're feeling today. Letting go of any need for competition, expectation, or judgment. And we can leave our hands here if we're comfortable, but we'll add a little bit of core strength. So on our inhale, let's just bring our awareness to our pelvic floor. You may have done this before and be familiar with it, but if you are new to your pelvic floor, if you were sitting on a bicycle seat, it's the muscles just above that inside your body, between your pubic bone and your tailbone. And if by chance you were peeing or maybe trying to hold in a fart or trying to stop your pee, these muscles would engage. You can kind of picture them like a parachute that lifts up. So let's add a little lift. On our inhale, noticing this area. And on our exhale, engaging and lifting up. Inhaling, a little relaxing. And exhaling, a little contracting, without forcing or making it too exaggerated. This is an endurance muscle. So we're just activating it. We're not trying to tire it out. And let's do a couple more rounds of breath like this. With our exhale, contracting, lifting up. We could be picturing an elevator maybe, going upstairs. Some people say imagining like we're drinking a milkshake. It might help to press your tongue to the roof of your mouth as you do this. Or you may involuntarily notice that your big toe or your eyebrows are lifting. That's okay if that's just part of the process. And then ideally just isolating this movement in the pelvic floor when we get more comfortable. And then let's engage this lift at roughly 30%. And before we start to move, we can repeat this affirmation one more time. I am enough. I have enough. I do enough. And let's start to wake and warm the body. Seated or standing, we can inhale, circle, sweep arms overhead. And exhale, we draw hands through heart center. Flowing with this a few times at our own perfect pace. Noticing the range of motion in our shoulders today. Just seeing what's going on there, observing, maybe feeling smooth or clunky. It's all good. Warming up a happy range of motion. Of course, we could reduce the range of motion at any time by bending our joints, our elbows, or knees in some of those exercises. Let's do one more here. Greeting the day with our breath. And we're going to start with chair flow. So if we've done chair flow before, we sit down and back into an invisible chair. We should be able to wiggle our toes. Might be a bit of a challenge to our balance. And we flow through like we just did with our circle sweeps. Inhaling up and exhaling down. Maybe for today, we're using our chairs. We could be using our chair for support, lifting up with an inhale and slow exhale on our way down. We could be using our arms to reach forward. Or maybe we don't have a chair, we're using the wall for support. Same kind of idea. We could put one or both hands on the wall, supporting ourselves as we sit down and back. Flowing how we feel best today. Knowing that you can never step in the same river twice, right? Each time we come back to our bodies, we're a little different. Alrighty, last one here. And we'll come back to mountain. Maybe a little different. One of my personal favorites. We usually see it more in the aerobics world than the yoga world. Let's do cat and cow from a standing position. So we can soften our knees and hinge from our hips. And let's, if you haven't heard this terrible yoga joke before, I will introduce you to it now. If we're really tucked under in our hips, we are not hinging, and we'll get this smooth shape in here. It's more easily accomplished usually in a prenatal class. We have this great curve in the low back and our bellies, but we know we are hip hinging if we make a hand sandwich between our thighs and our bellies. We have a sharp angle in the front of the hip. And then we can do our cat and cow from here, or we may like to use our chair for some added support. We can inhale to prepare, and then exhaling, we're rounding our backs into cat. Probably feeling a little different today. We have something in the way. Inhaling into cow, lengthening the back of the legs. And I like to think of cat and cow not as a really extreme stretch, but more like when you first turn your car on and things have to get going. That's kind of what we're doing to the spine here. We're just getting it started. Like we're oiling up our joints, getting things moving. Maybe noticing we have our pillow stopping us from going into our usual full expression of cat, and that's okay. It's a good reminder of what our participants might be feeling. And if your pillow is particularly heavy, it might be pulling you forward. Again, another good reminder. We'll come back into neutral, and we'll use our core strength to come up through standing, and return to mountain. Maybe we're feeling a little taller after our cat and cow. And we'll go ahead and step back for sunflowers and moonflowers. So our balance might be fantastic today. If not, I'll show you what we can do with our chairs. And to be honest, I usually tell my participants I don't really recommend moving your furniture around a lot as a participant. You can see why, but I do it so you can see. So, for more help with our balance, we can stand in front of a wall or have our chair in front of us for our sunflowers and moonflowers. We can use one arm at a time. We're inhaling up and out, exhaling down into moonflowers. And we could do a few on one side, of course, and then we're switching to do a few on the other side. And if you have no idea what my legs are doing, it's our typical sun and moon. Nice wide squat, perhaps a smaller range of motion for today. This is our spa principle, shortening the lever. Maybe we are holding our bellies to provide extra support. And let's check in with our pelvic floor. Any of these big wide leg stances are a real challenge to the pelvic floor. So we can inhale, relax, and then exhale, draw up through the pelvic floor as we bend our knees. And if we feel good with it today, we can add our sunflowers. So our typical sunflowers, reaching up into a 5-pointed star, adding that hand sandwich, shifting our tails back as we hinge forward from our hips into sunflower. Imagining all the adorable tiny little socks that we're going to be picking up when we do the laundry. Or whatever else you may pick up that hangs around your house as a result of your lovely children. Of course, yes, we can use our chair for this, right? Hinging forward with the support of our chair. Knowing that to all times of our lives, there is a yoga practice, right? And of course, I do not recommend using a wheelie chair for yoga, but I do because it helps me shift positions in my classes. Let's meet at the top, up and out into a 5-pointed star with or without support. We can bring hands to heart center and step up to the tops of our mats. Let's go through some stuff on the floor. So we'll inhale to sweep arms overhead, exhaling into a forward fold. And if, like me, you have a chair or a wall nearby, we could use them to help us step back into child's pose. Maybe just for today, we're taking our knees wider than usual to accommodate our newfound space. And in child, so often we do this big reach forward, right? If you've done athletes, you may have seen what Krista calls road cyclist pose. And it can actually be a great way to rest, not just for our athletes, but for our prenatal classes as well, providing a little bit more space. Knowing that we can come back into child at any moment, let's spend some time flowing here to keep our warmth and strength going. So let's do another pelvic floor lift just to remind ourselves. We can inhale, relax a little. Exhale, engaging, we lift through the pelvic floor. And we're all set for our Yogi Planks. So here we go. From child's, reaching our arms forward, we can inhale. And we're exhaling, coming forward into a kneeling plank. And we might have to do a little readjustment. And that's our flow. Inhaling back and exhaling forward. Noticing probably a different stopping point than usual, right? Like I can feel my belly touching my thighs, at this point. So a smaller range of motion than I would do with my typical day-to-day body. And knowing that that range of motion is totally okay, right? And then noticing how our shoulders and core are feeling. We may like to add some crocodiles here, right? A little bit of a drop to warm up. We press back and then we repeat. We inhale to get ready. And we exhale to draw in through our core muscles and bend the elbows. And even if we are feeling anticipation or pressure to do a huge range of motion here, our shoulders are actually a lot happier warming up with a small range of motion that over time can help us build into a bigger range of motion without pushing too hard too fast. Maybe one more here, knowing we can always rest early. Oh, and maybe a little bit late, but yes, we could do push-ups on the wall as another option if we're not getting down onto the floor. And yes, we could do push-ups on a sturdy chair at home as a couple more ways to do it. Pausing again in maybe downward facing dog or our cyclist pose. And let's take our time coming back to a seated position. So maybe today we're feeling really peppy and we're getting a really quick step to the top of the mat, or maybe we need more steps, smaller steps, our chair or the wall to help us get there. And that is A-okay, right? When we are there, let's all meet at the top of the mat. Coming into mountain one more time. Maybe we like to put a hand on heart and belly again, checking in with how we feel now that we've started to warm. We'll bring hands to hips, and we'll do some pelvic movements here. So let's pretend we have a big hula hoop on, and we're taking our hips through this giant hula hooping movement. Now, I don't know if this is any of us here. Some people with pelvic instability may actually find this bothersome. It might overstretch. It's not that common an issue. So if that's you, you could do a smaller range of motion. That would be okay. Or just focus more on breathing and pulling in the core on the out breath. If you love a big range of motion, of course, do that giant hula hoop. And let's make sure we go both directions, right? Hula hooping one way and the other. We may like to do it more like a belly dancer, smaller and more controlled. And for those of us who are interested, we're waking up our second chakra, right? This is our element of water. We are flowing. Maybe we like an affirmation like, I am in the flow with life. We'll come back through center. And let's take our hands to our ribs instead, or maybe one hand to our hips and one hand to our ribs. We're going to stabilize our second chakra here, and we are going to mobilize our heart chakra. We are turning and twisting from our ribs and coming back through center, turning and twisting from our ribs and coming back through center. We might like to just double check that we're not doing a huge twist with the belly, that our twist is coming from our ribs. Maybe we are picturing the color yellow, like our solar plexus strength, and green, the love of our heart chakra, is growing in all directions. And we'll go through kind of like a Tai Chi twist. In your manual, it's called rocking. A little bend in the knees, kind of a Tai Chi stance in the feet. We could still be drawing up through the pelvic floor so we have some stability. And we're going to pretend that we are shooting lasers from our heart. And we're going to turn with our exhale and let those laser beams flow one way and then the other way. Or maybe we're picturing like a Care Bear stare. Lots of self-esteem, shining it out into the world. Inhaling and exhaling. And maybe we have a little pivot going on in the feet if we like a bigger range of motion. We could be doing it even more gently with the arms. But the idea is that our thoracic spine is getting some movement. If we're dizzy, we can just keep the eyes forward as the rest of the body moves. And yes, of course, this could be a seated twist. All right, if we remember which side we started on, finishing on the opposite side and coming back through center. Let's do one more fire building pose. We'll do Flight of the Bird. So this is more active and it's a little bit different than our usual Flight of the Bird if you've done it with me before. If you've been to a boot camp class, it's an alternating lunge, stepping rear. So let's take our hands to our hips or maybe heart and belly again. And we're just gonna step back into a short lunge. And then we step back to the top of the mat. Stepping back to a short lunge and stepping back to the top of the mat. We could, of course, be using our chair or a wall, stepping back straight. And if you've done Flight of the Bird before as a big warrior one, maybe just for today, not doing that. Stepping back into a lunge, big straight step back if you like more, using wall or chair for support. I know some of us were in colder climates. We might like to be building more heat. Some of us are in warmer climates. We could be taking it easy, right? All right, let's go once more each way. And we can use the wall or a chair, a kitchen countertop, whatever surface we have around. We'll do a variation of downward facing dog. Sometimes it's called L stand, which doesn't make sense because it's an upside down L. I call it number 7 pose. So we can take our hands to whatever surface we have, like I said, the chair or a wall, and we're hinging our hips back, pausing for a moment in this standing down dog variation. We may like to do a little shift in our hips or bending our knees, inviting some movement in here. Let's come on up to standing. And this one's a pretty easy one to do seated or standing. We'll do a lateral flexion. So for the sake of showing us something seated, I will. If you are standing, you can stay exactly as you are. Let's go ahead and inhale the right arm up. Pressing down through the right foot. We're gonna inhale and open the right side of the ribs. Do we remember in that diagram, seeing how little space the lungs now have to expand? We can work with that by doing thoracic breathing. So as we inhale, imagining and feeling our ribs expanding, imagining our lungs moving into our armpits. With our exhale, we could still be aware of our pelvic floor holding us up tall. And let's go ahead and switch sides. Pressing down through the same foot as the hand that's in the air. Letting the weight of the world go from our shoulders. Feeling the space between each rib expand on our in-breath. Maybe releasing a sigh on our out-breath. We'll come back through center. If you're like me and your hand falls asleep, give it a shake. It doesn't really help, it just gives us something to do. And we'll make our way into our standing warrior 2 sequence. So I'll show us how it looks with a chair for a little bit of help if you would like. If you're okay doing it the usual way, of course, by all means, feel free to do so. We can inhale, reaching arms overhead. And we'll exhale, coming into a forward fold. Maybe we're taking our hands to thighs, or if we do like support, the chair. And as we so often do, we'll step our right foot back into a kneeling lunge. And then we may need to adjust our other foot forward or taking our left foot closer to the left side of the mat. And we can stay here or come down for a lower runner's lunge. Maybe we're noticing a stretch through the front of the right hip. And if we are feeling pressured to reach towards the floor, Well, let's remember our spa alignment, right? Aligning the spine. We want a tall spine, and that can happen at anywhere in that range of motion. But let's be honest with ourselves that our spine is aligned and we're not just kind of attempting to touch the floor for the sake of touching it. Option to reach arms overhead, or if we're feeling like we want a crescent lunge, of course, we can lift up into our crescent lunge. We'll go ahead and open into Warrior Two. I know I'm starting with my back to you, but let's go ahead and swing open to the side. Normally, we would probably take our back foot further back and come into like a really deep Warrior Two, but maybe just for today, we're keeping a bit more stability in it, closer to that Tai Chi stance, a short Warrior Two. We can take a look down and make sure our knee is over our ankle. And let's picture our feet as suction cups. So as we lift our pelvic floor on our exhale, can we imagine that our suction cups under our feet are lifting as well? And do our best to engage the muscles in the underside of the foot to draw upward. Yes, of course, we can have our Warrior Two arms here. Let's take our hands back down to our hips. We'll straighten our front leg. And to set our alignment, let's imagine that we are carrying our favorite toddler on our hip. And we're going to shift our back hip back to support their weight. And look how perfectly we're set up for our triangle pose. Taking hand to thigh, shin, or a chair. Maybe we're even leaning back against a close by wall. To help with our balance and stability, we could leave our top hand at our hip or relax it in behind our backs. With our exhale, engaging through pelvic floor and not forgetting those suction cups in our feet, spreading our toes, drawing up through our inner arches. Let's make our way back up towards our Warrior Two, bending our front leg, growing up tall, and adjusting ourselves, stepping back to the top of the mat. Might take a couple extra steps to get there for today. And we can give our legs a little shake. Let's pause again for a moment in our downward facing dog. Option to use our chair or a nearby wall. Or some of us may be really feeling the fire today. We might like a full down dog and some variation of our yogi push-up. But we are all going to meet standing back at the top of our mats. Let's give it a couple more rounds of breath. Alrighty, we're coming into mountain, and we know we have to make our sides match. Here we go. So we're stepping back into a kneeling lunge, using some or no support. We can reach arms overhead and swan dive into our forward fold, pausing maybe just with hands to thighs, using the floor or the chair, stepping the left leg back far enough that we feel we have a good steady base. We can slide forward into our lunge, and maybe we're taking our right foot closer to the right side of the mat to accommodate our pelvis and whatever else is going on. Yes, of course, we could be doing a runner's lunge with our hands down, or we might be up much higher. Checking in head to toe and noticing where you are feeling this. Don't let me tell you what it feels like. Noticing in this moment what's going on. Let's make our way into a high lunge or crescent lunge. Maybe climbing up the thigh, chair, or wall. If we like our typical crescent lunge arms, reaching overhead. Maybe we're noticing our balance or maybe even our blood pressure is a bit low. We know we can bring hands to heart, right? Yoga classic. Let's take hands to hips, to swivel open to the side. And our feet are probably fine wherever they are, as long as we feel like our lower body is kicking in to hold us here, right? Knee over ankle, we've probably heard that a million times before, rather than caving in or going way past the toes. If our knee is actually a little bit behind the heel, that's okay. Like it might look closer to a triangle rather than a deep warrior two. We're just going a little easier on the thigh if we do that, right? Okay, pulling up through our inner arches, pulling up through our inner core, hand over foot, hand over foot. One more time, let's take our favorite toddler on our back hip, adjusting our hips to hold them, and then sliding into triangle. So we can have our hands quite low, quite high. Maybe our chair is close by, or even if we have a wall, right? And we'll bend the front knee, coming back through to warrior two pose, and then stepping our feet towards one another at the top of the mat. How are we doing? Awesome. Okay. Let's do that one more time. We can go back into our down dog if we like, with the chair or the floor. Some of us may be in a fiery mood today, looking for more heat from our kneeling crocodile half series. But in a moment we will meet at the top of the mat. All right, mountain pose, here we go. Inhaling, we're sweeping up. Exhaling, we're taking hands to thighs. Coming into forward fold, we'll step our right foot back, prepping for warrior two. Maybe we're staying kneeling, or we're climbing up into a tall crescent lunge, and then opening to warrior two. From our strong warrior two base, let's reach our front arm up, adding lateral flexion or reversing our warrior. Often it helps keep our spine aligned if rather than looking into our underarm, we're actually looking at our back hand. Noticing how that works for us today. Let's come out of our reverse warrior. We'll take our hands back to our front thigh. One more time, option to rest in our standing down dog or step back and go through our half series flow. Let's meet in mountain. And we'll do that last little bit of heat building on the other side. Inhaling, we sweep arms overhead. We can lift our hearts and our gaze. Exhaling into forward fold. And we know where we're going this time, right? We can take hands to thigh. We're stepping our left foot back to set up for our warrior two. Using whatever we need to get there. Opening out. Let's reach our front arm up. Resting our back hand down. Opening the front side of the ribs. So really, if you haven't heard this before, our reverse warrior is our lateral flexion added to our warrior two. It is not a twist. This is what happens when we turn to look under the arm or we look at the teacher at the front of the room. We're getting side bending and twisting. Not ideal, right? One movement of the spine at a time. So from our warrior two, reach the top arm up, add our side bend. It might help to look towards your back hand or foot. All right, we'll come back through, resting our arms down. Let's make this our last chance. We can take hands to thigh, floor, or chair. We can rest in any variation of down dog, child's, or perhaps we love that upper body work. Our final yogi push-up. And then taking our time to meet in mountain. Okay, I promised a couple of stretches that we could do either seated or standing. Why don't we do, let's do our, we'll do our figure four, why not? So if we are standing, we make roughly the number 4 with our legs, ankle over ankle, ankle over thigh. We can make it like a chair pose, sitting back and down. We could do this with a sturdy wall to help us out. The same idea, ankle over thigh, sitting our hips back. Or, hey, guess what? If we're doing our practice largely seated today, let's be realistic about how far up our leg is going to come. Ankle over ankle or ankle over thigh. It might take some convincing. No matter what size our range of motion is, as soon as we start to externally rotate this leg, we're getting some length through the same area. Doesn't matter if you pick your foot up and put it behind your head, or if it's still down here with the other ankle, we're still getting some length through here. We might even like to pay attention to this area by taking our hand to it if we are seated. We can help it out and pull it up. We can hinge forward more or less. Hey, maybe some of us are really chilling out in our chairs, and that's okay too. As gracefully as we came into it, let's take our time coming out of it, releasing our limbs back down, and we've got the other side. So if we are in our chairs, crossing over, externally rotating like a ballerina, our bent leg, we can pull up more or a lot more. We can hinge forward, we can use our chair for support, or yes, maybe we are standing or using the wall. Don't let me overwhelm you with options. I hope there's something for everyone. Slowly and gracefully, we can come out of this, and we can use the wall for this one. We might use one of our bolsters or a block. This one takes a little bit more setup, but I think it's worth it. If you are, for whatever reason, just staying in a chair today, we can take the feet wide. We can take hands to thighs or palms up on our thighs, but we are starting to relax our pelvic floor. If we're okay to come down to the floor today, we can. So here's where we're going. We're going to a low squat. For some of us, this is easy. No problem, right? We can just like drop into it. My friend, the day before she was due to give birth, just like dropped down. She was like, I'm ready to go. See, I've been practicing. Just like, I don't know. That's her thing. Not for everybody, right? So We can pile up bolsters or blocks against the wall. We might be sliding down the wall to help us get there. If it feels too far, it probably is. We may also be sitting on a low stool. Might take some working with. If we feel good in this low squat with 1 or 2 bolsters, perfect. If it takes a little more work, or you think you're going to have a pile, 5 bolsters high, then of course, yes, we could just be using the wall, coming up to the wall, leaning back into it, and practicing doing a bit of a drop. The same as that figure 4 we did, it doesn't matter if you're doing the world's biggest range of motion or a tiny range of motion, we're getting length in the same places. So let's breathe relaxation into our inner thighs and glutes. And we have been here a little while. We're going to start maybe the very ungraceful work of coming out of the pose. If you are on the floor, I guess untangle yourself and make your way into a seated position. If you are standing against the wall like me, same idea. We can make our way into a seated position on the floor. And we are going to take our legs forward into a seated straddle. Often we start with the knees bent, which is totally cool. You may also be doing this with your back against a wall, leaning back into the wall so that you can get more release. If this feels like a lot of work to hold you up, we could take our hands in behind, or we could take the easy route. I would not recommend doing this with closet doors, but we could take the easy route of leaning back against a wall. If we're feeling particularly limber today, and it feels good to do so, we could take our legs down. Always engaging our tall spine before we hinge forward. And if we are coming forward, maybe we're more aware of our breath in our back, in our upper back. So we know that as pregnancy progresses, there's less room for the lungs to expand down. Well, guess what? We actually have a lot of lung capacity in our backs, kind of like cow pose or cat pose. Often we think if we want to get a deep breath, we have to really lift the chest, and we almost kind of shut off our lung capacity in our back. So if we come into a neutral spine, we can feel that breath more in our backs. And then any of those poses like child's pose, or rounded spine poses like cat, we can feel that breath in the back as well. Let's sit back up. We can have our legs straight or bent, as long as we're feeling pretty solid. And we'll take one hand in front and one hand behind. Inhaling to sit tall. And again, let's Care Bear stare as we turn our hearts to the side. Probably feeling the breath a bit more in the chest now. Let's take one more round of breath here. We'll come back through center, and when we're ready, we can come on to the other side. One hand in front, one hand behind, sitting tall, and turning to look. And of course, we know this is just one variation of a seated pose, right? If we are planning on never getting on the floor, we could be doing a seated twist in the chair. We might even have our legs crossed, doing a seated twist with our legs crossed. But since this is the variation in our manual that we're adding this week, we'll practice like this. Inhaling to sit tall. Exhaling, we can press down through the backs of the legs and our seats, lifting up through the pelvic floor to help us twist. Noticing how this wide-legged position keeps our pelvis stable, so we are twisting from the heart rather than our hips or low belly as we might do in a supine twist. We'll come back through center. All right, we can plant our feet. The manual shows it quite wide. There's also a variation with the legs straight. It's kind of an alternative to inclined plank or tabletop that I like to call Sunbathers Pose. Like we're sitting on the beach soaking up the rays, we can take our fingertips in behind and lift our hearts. With our inhale, feeling our chests expand. And exhaling, noticing again that softening coming into our inner thighs. Maybe we're noticing here the subtle pounding of our heart beating. Might be a strong kind of drum beat, a little pitter patter. Might feel much smoother. And we'll do one more seated pose here. We'll come into a variation of butterfly. So we can bring our legs in. Again, this one you might be against the wall. I really did a number on my sacrum, and I found this one really, really quite nice. Up against a wall. Lots of support, and then I feel like there's a lot more release happening because my core muscles don't have to hold me. So that may be something you want to play around with if you've never tried before. If you don't have any clear wall space, or like you could even do it against the seat part of a couch. We've probably done butterfly before, right? We can loosen up our knees, inhale to sit tall, and exhale to release and fold forward. Always starting from that hip hinge, and then once we've gone as far as we can go, allowing a bit more release in the spine. Again, maybe we're aware of our breath in our backs here. Noticing that stopping point that our cushion or pillow will have us come to. That might be quite pulled back from our usual full range of motion because we don't want to put any undue pressure on our imaginary baby. Knowing, of course, this is a great sort of metaphor in our practice for accepting support, right? Often we think, I'm going to shoulder everything myself. I got this warrior spirit. I'm going to do it all on my own. But often we can get the job done better if we just allow ourselves to receive support. So I'm working less hard and finding more release. You may feel a little different, and that's okay too, right? Everyone's practice is different. And we are going to do some alternate nostril breath, and then we're going to lie down. So this is our last seated position. Listening to our bodies, knowing that alternate nostril is supposed to give us relax and relief. Let's go somewhere comfortable. You can do it lying down as a visualization. You can stay sitting up with me against the wall. If you're still sitting in a chair, you can stay still sitting in a chair, no problem there. We might like to sit on a cushion or anything else we have. But the idea is that we can allow the breath to flow, right? So if we want that metaphor of accepting support, we can use the wall, we can use a chair, and then, like I said, if you do it lying down, we just do it as a visualization. We don't need to worry about our hands, and there's a lot of power in doing it that way as well. For the sake of looking at you, I'm going to turn and look at you. And if you have never done alternate nostril breath before, I will lead us through. I'll start simple and then maybe add on. If you've done this before a million times, take it away, lead your own practice, but here's what we'll do. Usually, this is how I lead it. We're just gonna take one finger on each side, or you might like to, like you're about to plug your nose to jump into the pool, kind of like that, thumb and first finger. We just inhale, we plug one side, breathe out, and then in again. And then switch. Breathe out and in again. So in my own mind, I think out, in, switch. Out, in, switch. Out, in, switch. You may like a more traditional hand position, like surfer dude mudra, my niece calls it. And take two fingers to your third eye. Same idea, breathe in, block one side, out, in, and then switch. If you're feeling really stuffed up, that's another reason we could just do it as a visualization. And what is the point? Well, first of all, it gives our mind something to focus on. Breathing is good for us. Practicing a deep yoga breath is good for us. It works our coordination so we don't get that mom brain, as they call it. And actually, our nostrils kind of send signals to the body. So if our right nostril is more open, we're in a more activated state. If our left nostril is more open, we're in a more like down-regulated state. And if we do both of them together, then in theory, we can be peacefully engaged, active and passive as necessary, which is perfect for a meditation practice, right? We want to be relatively alert and still calm. Let's do a few more rounds here. Knowing that we are sending this peaceful, calm, yet alert and focused message to baby as well. And that this is a great, healthy state for our nervous system to be in. If you've done warriors, we know this kind of practice for regulation. Super healthy for everyone, especially mom and baby. Okay, we're gonna set up for Reclined Queen. So this is a supported fish with butterfly legs. The idea is that we feel kind of pampered and supported. If it doesn't feel comfortable for you, Okay, we can use our brains. Lie any other way you like, but I'll show you how to set up for it as it is in the manual. So this will be our final relaxation kind of pose, which means you may like, I'm going to throw my sweater on, socks, eye pillow, that kind of thing. But here is the idea. And again, like, this might take a long time. I know I'm like bopping around quickly with my imaginary pregnant belly, but if I had a real one, it would probably take me a lot longer to do this. And in a group live class, participants might be helping each other. In a home online class, participants might have a family member with them or something like that. So this kind of setup cannot be rushed. Let it take as long as it takes. Remember to use biomechanics. Even though we're seated, we should still lift things with some kind of safety in mind. And if we can, we set up so that things are nicely placed for when we lie down. So I'm going to have my bolster not quite touching my bum, but back a little bit so that as I lie back, my bum is still on the mat and then my spine is caught by the bolster. And I'm going to kind of estimate where my knees are going to fall when I lie back. If we remember our level 1, how do we lie down? We draw one knee towards our chest and ease ourselves down. If we've gotten it right, we'll get it on the first try. And then we can let the knees open into butterfly. Hopefully we can reach and readjust. And if we are feeling like reclined queens, fantastic. We're in the exact perfect spot. If not, we can roll to one side and come out, readjust. Taking as long as we need to get everything perfect. And if nothing's really working, or if we've been here too long and we're ready to move out of the pose, then we can come into side lying or any other comfortable position. During our relaxation, our baby pose is another option. So comfort is the name of the game, right? We just did all this work. We are ready for rest. I'm just going to change into our more meditative music. There we go. Awesome. We may like to place a hand on the belly again. Maybe a hand on the heart. And there is a line of thinking that those who are better able to be in tune with their heartbeat, like, can you guess your resting heart rate just by noticing your body, not by counting or using a smartwatch, are better able to guess the gender of their unborn child. It's an idea, it is not scientific fact. But let's see if we can guess your resting heart rate. can bring our awareness back to our pelvic floor. Inhaling, noticing any tension in the inner thighs, area of the pelvic floor. And this time as we exhale, allowing this tension to release. So we may be picturing that parachute or like a Roman arch of our pelvic floor and allowing it just to release slightly. Inhaling, noticing, and exhaling, releasing. Inhale deeply, and as you exhale, option to open the mouth, sighing, releasing tension into the earth. Allowing ourselves to be held by the earth, knowing that to the earth, we're lighter than a feather. We don't need to hold ourselves here. As we inhale, bring awareness to the crown of the head. As we exhale, feel a warm settling from the crown of the head to the base of the spine. Inhaling into the sides of the neck and exhaling, releasing the muscles around the spine. Inhaling into the shoulders, exhaling, feeling the weight of the shoulders and any worries release and let go. I am enough, I have enough, I do enough. Inhaling into heart center. Exhaling, feeling the heart gently blooming, open and receptive, giving and nurturing. Inhaling into arms and hands. Exhaling, allowing the arms that care and nurture to be cared for and nurtured with ease. Inhaling, bringing awareness to low back and sacrum. Breathing out, allowing a subtle yawn to spread through the back of the pelvis here. Low back, sacrum, buttocks, hips. On our next inhale, noticing the length of the legs that allow us to go anywhere, holding on to strength and tightness, and exhaling, allowing them to release. Noticing our feet that carry us, probably tired and sore at times. Imagine they're being massaged with warm oil. Bringing awareness to the face, the brow, the jaw. Imagining that any tension is being ironed out. Again, maybe massaged with warm oil. Maybe we're noticing the smell of a wonderfully scented oil. So we have been in Reclined Queen for quite a while. Staying here if you like. We are going to continue the guided meditation, but I did want to give us the reminder that we could always roll to one side And again, prop ourselves up as necessary. And we'll do a guided single nostril breath practice. So our left nostril, being dominant, allows us to feel more yin, feminine, nighttime qualities. It's the energy of the moon, sleep, suppleness, softness. So imagining that on our inhale, we're drawing breath in through only the left nostril. On our exhale, exhaling through only the right nostril. Inhaling softness. Exhaling warmth. Maybe we're imagining inhaling a warm color. Inhaling a brilliant yellow. And exhaling red. Maybe it's a glittering, sparkling yellow or gold that we're breathing in through the left nostril. Maybe it fills the left lung. Moving into the right nostril, it becomes red. Exhaling through the right nostril. We can inhale for a count of 4. Exhaling for a count of 8. And noticing the slowing, softening sensation that comes over the body. When we take a deep breath and stretch out our exhale, it sends a message to heart, brain, and body to slow down. If we have busy minds, counting can help with this. Inhaling for 4, exhaling for 8, maybe pausing with the lungs empty and saying to ourselves, softness. Inhaling 4, exhaling 8, softness. You may prefer another word like release, sleepiness, maybe revitalization, that you prefer to say at the end of that out breath. If it feels good, continuing with this pattern. If not, we know we can choose any other breath pattern that feels like it's effective, beneficial, or good for us today. Simply breathe, enjoying the fruits of your practice, the care and nurture of self. Recognizing that care of oneself, the giver of life, transcends into the care and nurture of your unborn child. Sensing the ease and grace of each breath as a gentle conversation with your baby-to-be, the child warmed by the fluid movement of your practice and the creation of warm blood flow. Your child soothed by the rhythm of breath, the ebb and flow of this exchange, mother to child, child to mother. The bond soft and yet strong, like a mother's love. Resting now, and maybe dialoguing with your child through the breath and through the beat of your heart.